I was 12 years old when my mom sat me down in our living room and said, "Mia, we have to be on the same page." Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but there was a glint in her eyes that made my stomach twist. She was always good at getting people to believe her. My mom, Rachel, had this magnetic energy, like she could pull you in with a smile and make you forget everything else. And in that moment, I was no different. I wanted so badly to be what she needed. She held my hands tight, her nails digging into my skin. "Your father is gone," she said, her voice trembling like she was on the edge of tears. "He doesn't love us anymore, but you're my girl, Mia. You'll stay with me, right? You'll help me tell everyone what happened." I nodded before I even understood what she meant. She smiled, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "That's my girl." I didn't know the full story back then. I didn't understand the difference between a lie and a truth that was twisted into something else. My mom told me my dad had left us, that he had met someone else and decided he didn't want to be part of our lives. She said he was cruel, selfish, that he abandoned us without a second thought. And because I was a kid who didn't know better, I believed her. I remember the day we moved out of the house I had known since I was born. She packed up our things with a manic energy, moving so fast I could barely keep up. She hummed a happy tune while she stuffed boxes with our clothes, our family photos, even the teddy bear my dad had given me when I was 6. "New beginnings," she said, her eyes bright. "We're going to start over, Mia. Just you and me." I clung to her words like a lifeline. My dad called a few times in those early days, but my mom always grabbed the phone first. She'd listen, with a tight smile, her fingers drumming on the counter. Then she'd hang up without letting me speak. "He doesn't want to talk to you," she'd say. "He doesn't care about us anymore." At night, I'd lie in bed, hugging my bear, and try to remember what my dad's voice sounded like. It felt like he was fading away, like a dream I couldn't quite hold on to. My mom was the only one there to fill the silence, and so I let her words become my truth. The months turned into years. My mom worked hard to make our new life seem perfect. She found a job at a fancy salon and started dressing like one of those women in glossy magazines. Hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, clothes that hugged her curves just right. She'd bring me to her appointments and I'd watch as she turned heads, her laughter filling the room. She was the center of every conversation, always telling stories that made people lean in closer, hang on every word. And when we were alone, she'd tell me, "Mia, people don't need to know all the details. They just need to know what matters." She'd lean in close, her perfume sweet and suffocating, and she'd say, "We're a team, okay? You and me against the world." So when people asked what happened with my dad, I repeated her words. "He left us," I'd say. "He didn't want us anymore." The more I said it, the more I believed it. It was easier that way, easier than asking questions I wasn't sure I wanted the answers to. But the truth has a way of clawing its way out, even when you try to bury it, and for me it started with small cracks in the story. One day I found an old photo in the back of my closet, my mom and dad, arms around each other, smiling so bright it hurt my chest to look at it. They looked happy, not like two people who had torn each other apart. I brought it to my mom, hoping she'd tell me more, but she snatched it from my hands and threw it in the trash. "Don't live in the past, Mia," she said, her voice sharp. "We don't need those memories." Another time, I answered the phone when my mom was out. It was my dad. His voice was hesitant, like he wasn't sure I'd want to hear it. "Mia," he said, "I miss you. I've been trying to see you." I froze. My heart thudded so loud I thought he'd hear it through the line. You left us," I stammered. "Mom said—" "Mia," he interrupted, his voice shaking. "That's not true. I never wanted to leave you." Before he could say more, my mom walked in. She grabbed the phone from my hand, her face a mask of fury. "Don't you dare talk to her," she hissed into the receiver. Then she slammed it down and turned on me, her eyes wild. "Why did you answer?" she demanded. "You know he's no good for us." I tried to explain, but she wasn't listening. She never did when it came to him, so I stopped trying. I buried the photo, the phone call, the questions. I told myself she was right. She had to be. When I was 16, everything changed. My mom met Michael at a work event. He was rich, charming, and completely smitten with her. He started coming around more and more, always with expensive gifts and that easy smile that made my mom melt. At first, I thought he was just another of her short-lived romances, but it didn't take long to realize this was different. He talked about family, about building a life together, and my mom, she seemed happier than I'd ever seen her. But with Michael came a new level of performance. My mom wanted everything to look perfect for him, including our past. One night, she sat me down in the living room, just like she had all those years ago, and said, "Mia, we need to be clear on our story. Michael can't know how bad things were with your dad." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" She reached for my hands, her eyes soft and pleading. "I need you to tell him that your dad left us, that he didn't care. We can't have any confusion, Mia. Michael's a good man. He deserves to know we're a strong family, no messy past to ruin it." I felt my throat close up. "But, Mom, he didn't leave because he didn't care." She cut me off, her grip tightening. "Mia, this is important. Do you understand? If Michael finds out the truth, he might not want to marry me. He might not want us." The way she said us made my chest ache. She was making this about more than just her. She was making it about me, too, about whether I'd have a place in this new life she was building, so I nodded. I told her I understood, and when Michael asked about my dad, I smiled and said the words she'd taught me. He left us. My mom was everything to me. Michael beamed, and my mom's eyes glistened with tears. She squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you, baby. You're my everything." I told myself it was just a small lie, one that didn't really hurt anyone. But every time I saw my dad's number on my phone and didn't answer, every time I saw his name on a birthday card I never opened, the lie felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. The months passed in a blur of wedding planning and whispered secrets. My mom threw herself into creating the perfect day. Flowers, music, a white dress that shimmered like a dream. She wanted everything to be just right, and I wanted to believe that if I just played my part, everything would be okay. But deep down, I knew it wasn't okay. Because the lie wasn't just a story we told to protect ourselves. It was a cage that kept me from the father who still loved me, from the truth I was too scared to face. On the morning of the wedding, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. My hair was curled and pinned in a way my mom loved, my dress a soft blush that matched the roses in her bouquet. I looked like the perfect daughter, the perfect witness to my mom's new beginning. But inside, I felt hollow. I watched her in the bridal suite, laughing with her bridesmaids, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She looked so beautiful, so sure of herself. I wanted to feel happy for her, but all I could think about was the secret I was carrying, the way it burned in my throat every time I swallowed. "Mia, you look beautiful," she said, catching my eye in the mirror. "Are you ready?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, Mom, I'm ready." But I wasn't. Not really. As we walked down the aisle together, her on Michael's arm, me trailing just behind, I felt like I was watching a movie. The music swelled, the guests stood, and everything felt so impossibly perfect. But all I could hear was my dad's voice on the phone that day, telling me he missed me, that he never wanted to leave. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want to lie anymore. I didn't want to keep carrying her secret like it was my own, because it wasn't. It never was. But I didn't know how to stop. So I walked down that aisle, the weight of the truth pressing down on me, and I told myself I'd find a way. Someday. Because even as the world around me shimmered with fairy lights and promises, I knew the truth had a way of coming out, and I was done being the one who kept it locked away. I stood there, hidden behind a cluster of pale pink roses and billowing white tulle, my fingers clenched around the edge of the chair. The wedding had begun. Soft music, the rustle of expensive dresses, the warm scent of lilies and vanilla drifting through the air. My mother stood at the altar, radiant in a dress that shimmered like a promise she'd never intended to keep. Michael beamed at her like she was his entire world, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. I should have been happy for her. I should have felt proud, even. My mother had built her fairy tale ending, and I was supposed to be the loyal daughter standing beside her. But I wasn't proud. I was angry. Angry at how easily she had rewritten our lives, at how she had twisted the truth into something that suited her better. Angry that she had made me complicit, forced me to carry a lie that wasn't mine to begin with. I looked around the room. There were people everywhere, friends, family, strangers in expensive suits, all gathered to witness this perfect day. My dad sat at the back, alone. His face was pale, his eyes fixed on the floor. He looked so small, like he was trying to disappear into the shadows. My heart ached for him. My dad, who had always been there for me in ways I hadn't allowed myself to remember until now. My dad, who had been cast as the villain in a story my mother had forced me to tell. I remembered the phone call he had made to me a few months before. The way his voice had cracked when he said, "I miss you, Mia. I never wanted to leave you." I had wanted to believe him, but my mother's voice was louder, stronger, drowning out everything else. Even now, as she stood there in her white dress, her smile bright and beautiful, I could hear her in my head. "We're a team, Mia. Don't ruin this for me." But I didn't want to be her team anymore. I didn't want to be the one who kept her secrets, who protected her lies. My entire life had been about making sure she looked good, that people saw her the way she wanted to be seen. But today, in this room full of flowers and whispered blessings, I wanted them to see her for who she really was. The ceremony moved forward in a blur. Vows were spoken, promises made. My mother's voice was clear and strong as she pledged her love to Michael, her eyes glistening with carefully curated tears. Michael's voice shook with emotion as he took her hands and promised to stand by her always. I watched them, feeling a hollow ache deep in my chest. Then came the part where the officiant asked if anyone had any objections. My heart thudded in my chest. I could feel every beat like it was echoing in my bones. My mouth was dry, my palms slick with sweat. This was my moment. I had one chance to speak the truth, but my throat closed up. My mind screamed at me to stay silent, to let the lie live a little longer. My mother turned her head slightly, her eyes flicking to mine for the briefest moment. There was a warning in her gaze, a silent command. Don't. For a heartbeat, I almost obeyed. But then I looked at my dad. His shoulders slumped, his eyes so full of sadness and regret. And I knew I couldn't be silent anymore. I stood up. The scrape of the chair against the floor sounded louder than the music. Every head in the room turned toward me. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. My mother's face went pale, her smile freezing in place. I have something to say, I said. My voice was shaking, but I forced the words out anyway. I'm sorry, Mom. I can't lie anymore. There was a stunned silence, the kind that feels like the world is holding its breath. My mother's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. Michael's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. The officiant blinked, clearly unsure of what to do. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling at my sides. You all think this day is about love and trust, I said, my voice growing stronger with every word. But it's built on a lie. My mom told everyone that my dad left us, that he didn't want us anymore. But that's not true. I paused, my throat tight. My mother took a step forward, her mouth open like she was about to say something, but I didn't let her. I had to finish. I had to let them see. The truth is, my mom cheated on my dad, I said, my voice breaking. She was the one who wanted out. She was the one who ended everything. But she made me lie for her. She made me tell everyone that my dad was the bad guy, that he abandoned us. I've been carrying that lie for years, and I can't do it anymore. Gasps rippled through the room. Michael's face turned ashen, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't find the words. My mother's face crumpled, a flash of rage and desperation flickering in her eyes. "Mia, stop!" she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "This isn't the time." But I shook my head. "No, Mom. This is the only time. I'm done protecting you. I'm done pretending." I turned to Michael. "I'm sorry. You deserve to know who she really is. You deserve to know the truth before you promise the rest of your life to her." For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. My mother's breath came in short, furious bursts. Michael stared at me like I had just torn the ground out from under his feet. My dad looked up at me, his eyes wide with something like hope, and then my mother moved. She lunged forward, her hand outstretched, her face twisted with panic. "Mia, stop it!" she shouted, her voice cracking. "You don't know what you're saying." But I did. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was saying. "I'm telling the truth," I said, my voice calm even as my hands shook. "I'm done being your puppet." The room exploded into chaos. Guests whispered furiously to each other, some of them already getting up to leave. My mother tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Michael just stood there, his face pale and stunned, his hands trembling at his sides. I felt something inside me shift. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. I had spent so long trying to protect my mother, trying to be the daughter she wanted. But in that moment, I was done. I was done being the girl who lied to keep her mother's secrets safe. I turned and walked down the aisle, my head held high even though my heart was racing. I could hear my mother calling my name, her voice growing shrill and desperate, but I didn't look back. I kept walking, past the shocked faces and the ruined flowers, past the perfect white arch that was supposed to be the start of a new life. When I reached the door, I paused and looked back one last time. My mother stood in the center of it all, her perfect day in ruins around her. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. Real, raw fear. And then I turned away and stepped outside. The sun was warm on my face, the air crisp and cool. I took a deep breath and felt something inside me settle. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see my dad. He looked at me with tears in his eyes, his face a mix of relief and sorrow. "Mia," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "you didn't have to do that for me." "I didn't do it for you," I said softly. "I did it for me?" He pulled me into a hug, and I let myself sink into it. I let myself feel everything I had been holding back, the grief, the anger, the relief. My dad's arms were warm and solid around me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. We stood there for a long moment, the two of us surrounded by the quiet hum of the world moving on. When we pulled back, he smiled at me, a real, soft smile that reached his eyes. "You're braver than I ever was," he said. "I'm just tired of pretending," I replied. He nodded. "Me too." We walked away from the venue together, leaving the chaos and the lies behind. I didn't know what would happen next, if my mother would ever forgive me, if Michael would call off the wedding, if my family would ever be whole again. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to have all the answers. I had told the truth. That was enough. As we reached the edge of the parking lot, I glanced back one last time. I could see my mother through the glass doors, her hands pressed against the window, her face a mask of heartbreak and fury. She looked so small, so fragile in her perfect white dress. I felt a pang of sadness for her, a tiny, flickering echo of the girl who had once believed she could fix everything if she just loved her mother enough. But I knew now that love wasn't about lies. It wasn't about playing along in someone else's story. Love was about truth, even when it hurt. I took my dad's hand, and we kept walking. The sky was bright and blue above us, the world wide and open. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was writing my own story. And I knew, whatever came next, I would never be silent again.